We talk about the difference with American orchestras and European orchestras, and you, of course, have been in charge of the European orchestra in Liverpool. How have you experienced the difference?
That's very interesting. Here, Tom talks about all the functions we do. We're, as JoAnn, I can speak for both of us, we're artists. That's what we care about. That's what we do. We study scores hard, we care deeply about the music. But we are social people. There are some conductors, as I'm sure we all know, the last thing they want to do after a concert is go out to dinner with someone who cares about the orchestra, cares about what they care about. We enjoy it, actually. So it's not really fundraising in that sense. I mean, Tom and I were in Palm Springs yesterday, doing a little concert and reception for Seattle residents of New Orleans and Palm Springs. Sure, it was a fundraising event, but it really was a chance for us to see many of our close friends and play some great music. And so, it's very hard when you take an artist and say, now you're a fundraiser. Well, JoAnn's not a fundraiser, nor am I. On the other hand, we love the people that give to our institution. And quite frankly, just about every friend we have in Seattle is someone who cares about the orchestra. And if they don't care about the orchestra, it's not that they're not wonderful people, but they're just not our friends because we don't have that in common. Now in Europe it was very interesting because there's a tradition in most of the orchestras, not all, most of the orchestras where, just exactly as Bernard said, the conductor does his or her weeks, does not interfere with almost anything. You just do your weeks, and you get first crack at repertoire, you get first crack at the dates, you do the tours, if there are any recordings, you do the recordings. It's very wonderful. So Liverpool was no different than all the others. Conductors usually last 4, 5, 6 years, and they move on and hire another one. In Liverpool, they call them principal conductors. They rarely had a music director, even though, for example, Colin Davis was music director of the London Symphony, he acted like a principal conductor. He told me that, he doesn't do anything but does his weeks and leaves. So when they actually offered me the position, I said, sure, I'd love to do it. I'd love to do a wonderful orchestra. I said, what would you like? And they said, we'd like you to be the music director. I said, well, why not just make me the principal conductor? Well, we want you to be the music director. We want you to be the music director in the American style. We want you to hire the musicians, which the music director never did before. We want you to listen to auditions, which the music director didn't do. We want you to oversee all the programming, oversee everything. And it was interesting because it wasn't, they really wanted it, and then when they had it, I'm not sure they were so thrilled about having it. Because all of a sudden, if you'd have a meeting where you discuss the new principal flute and you'd have a disagreement and then I would decide. Instead of having the opening go on for another 5 years. We haven't agreed. So if I could make a decision, it was interesting. And in a sense, it was, I think ultimately, it was musically very successful, artistically very successful. I'm not sure if it was totally successful because of that aspect, because they wanted something from me, which I was happy to give, but I'm not sure they really wanted. They wanted it, and then they got it, and I'm not sure they wanted it then. So it's interesting. It would have been probably better that I do like everyone else did my 5 years as principal conductor. But we made tremendous artistic strides during that time. And we used to have situations in Liverpool where you'd have an opening for 3 or 4 years, and by the time you choose someone, they weren't available anymore. They had what they call trials. So everyone that played reasonably well got a trial. So let's say you have a principal bass player, you have 10 bass players with trials. And each trial would be 2 weeks long. So you do the math, that's 20 weeks, but they're all very busy. So it would take a couple of years before you finish the trials. And then you go back and pick someone who you, like 2 years ago, but they're playing in the LSO now. And then you'd have another audition. There were positions that were open for forever. But when I became an I said, okay, look, let's do this. Let's do 1 week trials. We'll only have 4 finalists, and the decision will be made, and it will be made within 3 months or something like that. And then we filled all the positions that way. It was interesting.